So, sight reading pieces. So I guess it makes sense to start with a very just short Q&A. Quickly, actually, we're not ready to actually wait for you. Oh yeah, we're going to ask you, how, actually I can ask you now, we don't need to wait for you. Just how did you get on with the exercises over the week? Did you manage to... Okay.
I didn't get as much time as I would have liked, but...
Yeah, I know, that's normal, isn't it?
Ended up being one of those weeks.
Is that okay?
I had a question, Georgia.
Yeah.
The hardest thing that I find is, if I look at the music and ignore the key signature, then it's always pretty much fine. But it's when there's a key signature, and I have to keep remembering that. And you were saying in the lesson, keep reminding yourself as you go, which is fine when there's maybe one or two accidentals, but when there's like 4 or 5, I find that almost impossible to remember as I'm going which one should be sharp and flat or whatever. Yeah. And so my question is, would it be better, because at the moment I'm kind of reading, no matter what key it's in, I kind of play it in these frets, and I've only given myself one option for each note kind of thing.
Yes.
Would it be better, say for example the piece was in F,
yes.
I actually go to like a position of an F scale and read there and look at the intervals in relation to a scale shape that I know, rather than trying to do it here where, if you see what I'm saying.
Completely, absolutely, it's a great question actually. I think yes, I think whatever, I think that every strategy, any strategy that will really help each one of us should be considered a good one, because they're all different. And so a lot of people actually might prefer reading in open position, particularly those who spend maybe the first years of their training and learning to play classical guitar. Because very often, even without practicing sight reading at first, very often most tunes in classical guitar, they are in this part of the fingerboard. So you know where your D is. So it's more to do with fretboard knowledge in this area.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, and to a point actually, I recognize myself as one of these guys. And I always find it easier to read in open position, because I know the notes very well, and I know I have to learn a lot of tunes based in this area. But then definitely familiarizing with shapes in a particular tonality is great. It's a fantastic strategy. So I am in F major, so F major, I can see like an F major E shape.
Yeah.
Or you can think about the C shape here and the A shape. So you can think about not only open position, but you can think about the E shape from the cage system.
Yeah.
That's another possibility. So if you know where your C and A.
Yeah. What I was thinking is then you look at a piece and then you train yourself, as you were saying, to instantly recognise this first note is a third apart. I don't need to necessarily know that the third of F is A. I can just know from the shape.
Completely.
This note here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a real. In fact, when you read melodies or arpeggios, you can spot that they will look different, don't they? I mean, if you have an ascending second, it's a stepwise movement. So you just go up one step, and you can clearly see that. So even if you don't know what the next note is, you know this the next within the scale of F.
Yeah.
So you can just go from F to G. So very often, if you're reading like 7 notes, one next to each other, going up, climbing up, one step at a time, the intermediate notes, in a way, you don't even need to know what the third note is. You know, it's the third note of that scale. So that's that's
kind of what I'm asking.
Absolutely, that makes perfect sense. I think we're ready to roll. Yeah, great. So hi everybody, if you're to just join us now, just doing a Q&A about using different positions, the open positions, or familiarizing with the neck, the fingerboard. And a great question from Will. Actually, would you mind actually repeating your question, please?
Yeah. So the thing that I find hardest was when there's a key signature with more than 2 or 3 accidentals, and I find it hard to remember which notes are meant to be sharp or flat, because it doesn't actually say, it only says it at the start of the line. And so my question was, should we be reading in a scale shape? For example, if the song's in G, should we be reading in a G major scale shape that we know perhaps based on the 3rd fret or something, rather than reading everything in the same area of the neck no matter what key it's in, and then struggling with the accidentals?
Yeah, great. And my answer would be yes, definitely it would be a great idea to do that, but at the same time, because there's a lot of subjectivity in learning, and so some of us might find it easier to do that, and some other players might find it easier to really memorize the fingerboard or the notes in each part, each position of the fingerboard in chunks. So open position, third position, fifth position. Both strategies are absolutely fine, and whichever makes it easier for us. Like, I remember having a conversation with Carl Orr, a great guitar player. I'm sure you're familiar with Carl. Probably some of you might have studied with Carl. And talking about, some people actually feel sometimes that reading in open position or using open strings, like nearly cheating. You're supposed to come across as like a professional reader. You should always read in fifth position, seventh position, which is, there are many merits in reading in seventh position or fifth position, but sometimes it's not absolutely to play open strings. So long as you get the job done, that's absolutely fine. So, but it's a great idea to do this until that point that if you're reading a composition which modulates quite a lot. So if you're reading a tune in C major, yes, that will be absolutely fine, because you know the C major scale, or the tax man. I did pay my tax return, promise you. Yes. If you're reading C major, then knowing your C major shapes is great, because you're not even thinking about the note that you're playing. Your fingers can go in, you can rely on your muscle memory. So if you recognize you're ascending within a C major scale, and you see like 5 consecutive notes within C major starting from C, you don't even need to identify what the second note is. You just rely on where you recognize an ascending major scale, and that's an ascending major scale. You see, I'm not thinking about, well, that's an F, that's an E, that's a D. I could think about that too, but it's not necessary to do that. But that is not ideal if you're reading something which is not always diatonic. So something that features a lot of chromaticisms. So if you have, you go C major and then you go C sharp and then all the way flat. So any of these chromatic passages would prove to be challenging, because they don't belong to a particular C major or F major or sometimes not even like a melody minor or a natural minor scale. So they are outside a shape. But all of the above, I think, in my opinion, are great strategies. So any strategy, the more strategy we have, the better. Because in certain situations, that would be brilliant. Particularly when you're reading fast, when the tempo of the song is fast, but then if you can recognize a particular melodic shape, not only just a scale, maybe like an arpeggio, we'll find a few in our exercise. In fact, we can start looking at sight reading exercise. If we put one in A minor.
Is this on the
on the thing, yeah. So it should. Did you find that one in A minor?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exercise number 1. A natural minor with arpeggios and scales. Is it?
I think I've got a different. Is
Okay.
this a new handout or one from?
It's the one. It's the one actually from today. So maybe we can share.
One, yeah.
Or did you? Okay. Maybe could we share?
I can just. Did you email it?
I maybe
emailed
see.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just grab
Can
it.
you? That's great.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Can you do airdrop?
possibly.
So today we're going to be working on minor scales. So last week we worked on major scales. And then again, your strategy, what you're suggesting is absolutely brilliant, because you focus on a major scale shape, so you can definitely use that a lot. So then we can also do that with minor, harmonic minor, natural minor, and melodic minor scales, because we can memorize shapes for this very recurrent, or scales which are recurrently used. And what I did, like similar to what I did for last week, I created a number of exercises. To be specific, there are 7 exercises per handout, and I did that in A minor. It's a variety of natural minor, harmonic minor, and melodic minor exercises, featuring different melodic shapes, some scales, some arpeggios. And again, if you know your arpeggios, so we briefly mentioned about this last week, that if you're, sometimes you might recognize that you have to read an A minor arpeggio, and then some your reading is doing, or your eyes and your brain are doing all the right things. However, the hurdle becomes from technically executing what you see on paper or on your iPad. So if you recognize an A minor, that's great, and the sooner we can do that, that's fantastic, because we don't even need to think about, oh yeah, it's A, C, E, A. You recognize an A minor and just play an A minor. similarly, when you read something from I don't know any word from Aria, I can't find any words. Hey, sort it out. So if you find if you read anything from a book, sight reading, we need to read SIGHTR. The word has been cemented already. You can see that as one unit, and you just recognize the word at a glance. But we can do this now after many years of practice. I mean, my little one started started reading and writing in English last year, and I can see that it was a great reminder of how we do this in English or in Italian, as I did when I was a little one. But first of all, you learn to recognize the individual vowels and consonants, and then you start cementing them, and then you realize that two different vowels together they sound like different, and you go to digraphs, trigraphs, etc. The same thing happens to sight reading notes. So when you find two notes juxtaposed, like you have a double stop or a triple stop, at first there's a lot to decipher, but eventually you recognize from the shape, you're dealing with thirds or you're dealing with fourths, you can actually recognize how they look like. And I don't know if you've ever seen that, you're reading a book or you're writing something, and you look to a word and say, actually that doesn't look right. The spelling doesn't look right, right? I mean, and the same thing really with music. We do develop a certain affinity or familiarity with shapes, with what the music looks like. That's why when you're reading in, in A minor, and then you find some, a spelling, and then I want to spell like A flat. Sometimes that's A flat doesn't make any sense because A harmonic minor would have a G sharp. So you start really familiarizing with how the music looks like, as well as all the individual ingredients. But anyway, so these exercises, they gravitate around the minor scales. So of course, if we are not familiar on the fingerboard with a natural minor, a harmonic minor, melodic minor, then that will become the hurdle. So the sight reading challenge is not like deciphering what's on the page, but is actually executing that. Similar to me reading something in English, so I can see that, but I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce that. It's the same hurdle. So to do that, let's revise quickly an A minor scale. Just playing A minor around an E shape, A minor E shape. Yeah. Just play 8 notes around the pulse. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's great. And if you go up and down, that's great. So let's try in open position. So using this part of the fingerboard. 1, 2, 3, 4. Black climb to that if you wanted to. Of course, you can also climb. You can actually descend from A, and these notes are equally important because they're part of an A natural minor. Let's try A harmonic minor now. First of all, around the E shape. A harmonic minor, remember the major 7th replaces the minor 7th, so G sharp will be present. 3 and 4. Great, and it's good to revise that because otherwise, if our finger can't really find the notes in A harmonic minor, then the problem with sight reading is not reading per se. It's actually the technical part of it. Let's try a harmonic minor in open position. Open position starting from, let's start from the lowest possible note we can actually get, which is E. So it's going to sound like a Phrygian dominant really. Yeah? A harmonic minor starting from E will be an E Phrygian dominant. Again, 8 notes, 3, 4, and again. Let's try ascending and descending up to the A and then descending. 3 and 4 and again 3 and 4 and I'll speak briefly. One of the very important issues, yeah, one of the most important issues with sight reading is to make sure that once we decipher what's on paper, and one our technique, it's once if we know where these notes are, one of the recurrent issues or problems is that if we are having to look at the fingerboard a lot, then we are disconnecting. We kind of cut the link between our brain deciphering the content and our fingers executing the content that we just. Do you know what I mean? So when it's like reading a book. We can't, we're reading and our eyes are glued to the page. If you were to read a word and get distracted, every other word, then it's going to be hard for us to read with fluidity. So if someone is listening to us reading, say, come on, just it's not going to sound very fluid. And also for us to understand the content of what we're reading, that's quite tricky. So that's obvious, of course, but then that means very easy, but very obviously that we have to really work on finding these notes on the guitar without looking. So if we do the same exercise without looking, that would really facilitate reading. Because otherwise we'll have to stop every time and do that. Whenever I do that, and I say, oh, was I in bar 2 or 3? And you see what I mean? Particularly what you're reading is pretty tricky. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we are not allowed to look at the fingerboard, because it's tricky on the guitar, so sometimes we might have to do that, and if you have to do it, of course do it. However, it's really nice to practice scales, technique really, without, so to play any scale without looking. I was watching a clip yesterday with John McLaughlin practicing with a cloth, with a white cloth over his hand. So I can't really demonstrate that, but if you imagine having a towel over your hand, and you were just practicing, you can find this on YouTube, but it's mad. But actually, it's a great idea. I never thought about that. Because of course you can say, well, I'm not going to look, and that's fine. But also you can just play in a natural, comfortable posture, even looking toward this way, but without actually seeing what you're doing. It's a really good strategy consider doing it. But with reading, that's really, really important. So if we can find notes quickly on the fingerboard, even if you have to glance from time to time, that's all right. Particularly getting the right starting note. Going back to what you were saying, well, once if you start from here, then I know my shades. And it's really good for improvisation in general. Talk about playing an engaging way. So if you play anything that you've got in your mind without looking, at first it's quite daunting because you feel like it's like swimming without you don't catch you on the ground, but eventually you get used to it. That's going to really help your reading, our reading. That's for sure. I mean, I've benefited from doing this a lot over the years, and whenever the times that I have to look at the fingerboard, that's when things get a little bit more. There's the danger, there's the danger because I'm getting distracted by that. So anyway, this the first exercise features mainly arpeggios and scales. So the stepwise movement and then arpeggios. So if you look at the first bar, on the first bar we have clearly okay now, yes? So the first bar we go in A minor. The chords as well. I've added some chords in this particular exercise because I wanted to really challenge you also on chord reading or chart reading, recognizing chord symbols in different tonalities. So A minor is the chord, so we can expect to find an A minor arpeggio, but you can recognize the A minor arpeggio there. Right? You can see that. And the bottom note in the first 4 bars is A. The top note is, what's the top note? Nope.
That's B.
B, brilliant.
Oh, the first one.
So yeah, on the 3rd bar, brilliant. And then, so that's really also very useful just for us to plan whether we need to change position at some point. The second line features a higher note. What's the top note?
E.
Brilliant. So we can read this in open position. And it's A natural minor, we already know that. And even if the text wasn't reminding us that, I mean, we don't see any G sharps, any F sharps, so it's clear that we're in A natural minor. Good. So can we try the first bar? The rhythmic content is pretty straightforward at first on purpose, just so we can focus more on pitch reading. So 3, 4, great, on your own. 3, 4, brilliant. Second bar, 3, 4. I think we should continue doing really, really well. From the start, and we keep going after bar 4. 3, 4, So that's a problem. We talked about this last week. When we assume that we recognize a shape, and then so actually it's very similar to the other one, but it's not exactly the same. So that's a bit of a trap there. So you got the B. So that's it. Brilliant. And then bar 4. Descending third, yeah. Great, and then okay, from the top. 3, 4. Again, someplace. 2, 3, 4. That's the G rather than so bar 3 go. And it's so easy. We were talking about this last week, Kai. After a little while, it's very easy to rely on your memory, and you memorize that, and it's not. But this is quite tricky because this is very similar to bar number 1, but it's not the same. So our muscle memory gets confused between bar 1 and bar 3 because they're very similar. So it's very easy to play an A instead of a G. Okay, let's try the second line. The second line introduces some rhythmic challenges, which is crochet triplets. So remember, crochet triplets go to da, ga, 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 ga. The best way to really count crochet triplets, in my opinion, is to think about is to synchronize everything to the lower common denominator, which is the pulse, which is the crochet. And if you think about subdividing each crochet into 8 note triplets, and then you just clap every other quaver. So be subdividing into quavers, dun, 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 and then play every other one. Will be dun, 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 dun. Excellent. And that really understanding the rhythm is very important for us to execute that with confidence. So I normally do that just 1 second, a little bit before the bar begins, so I prepare mentally for that subdivision. Because the common mistake with crochet triplets, and I'm sure you're familiar with that, is to play them as, I'm doing like the calypso, yeah, dotted 8. Ta, 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 dotted, yeah, dotted 8, and then quaver. Ta, 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 which is kind of a calypso groove. Ta, 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 but it's not quite right, so it'll be ta, 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 ta. So subdivided should be each beat into triplets, in quaver triplets. Brilliant, that's it. And then the remaining part is pretty straightforward in terms of rhythmic content. Let's look at the intervallic movement. Do you recognize an arpeggio in bar 5? That's the whole point of this exercise, is about to recognize shapes. Do you agree? F, it's an F major, isn't it? Because you have A, F, it's cool, bar 5, yeah. And so bar 5 got A, major arpeggio. So whether you use open position or around fifth position, it will be still very useful to realize that we didn't need an F major.
And then like the next two and last note is the 7. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely correct, definitely. 7, and you got the 6. That's it. So that would be really helpful for us because our fingers can gravitate over the right shape. So let's try about 5. 1, 2. Good, and again, same place, 3, 4. That beat is quite, it's not very intuitive, it feels a bit, that beat should not be there.
So what I found tricky there was switching rhythm.
Yes.
It was almost like switching time signature.
Completely, going from the crotchet triplets into
it's almost like.
We talked about that.
6/4 to 4/4.
Completely. We talked about this last week, and that is the other challenge which is relevant to sight reading, which is developing good coordination skills.
Yeah.
Coordination, that's something that it's another plan for us to water. I mean, going dancing, it's a really good way of doing that, improving your dance routine might really help. No, honestly, I really think that practicing this physically, just clapping different rhythms on, even on your lap, on the guitar, on the piano, any instrument, will really help that in sight reading because the many different components are, recognizing the notes, recognizing the rhythm, executing the rhythm against or in sync with the pulse. There's very many different challenges in one, under the banner of sight reading. So there are many different things to take into account. But great, let's try this from the top. I'll play the chords now, you play the melody. That's an additional challenge in my opinion, when you're reading and you are somehow distracted by what's happening around what you're reading. And even if sometimes you can be distracted by the beauty or by the harmonies, I love that, or the opposite. So, oh, that sounds so really, and you start doubting yourself. Is it really correct what I'm reading? And so it's great to read in context. So getting together with someone else, it's a brilliant idea. So you're practicing sight reading with someone else doing something else in the background, playing some chords, and you can swap. Doing something else, and doing DIY in the background. Yeah. Roth,
Are you doing that major 9 in Ray?
Great. So that is one of my favorite chords. So reading, also sight reading, also very often, it's obvious that sight reading, as we all know, is not only reading melodies but reading chords. In fact, the majority of the gigs that I do still now challenge me as an accompanist rather than a melodic. I mean, sometimes there are some gigs where I have to read melodies, but the majority I just have to play chords, comp in different styles of music. It could be session. So A minor, we're all familiar with A minor. F major 9 over 8 is one of these very long names for a chord, which is actually very simple and very easy, and probably we play that a billion times. So F major 9 will be just 4 notes, just 5 notes. So over 8, right? Now with an extended chord, there are essential notes, notes that we need to include, and notes which are not that important, only the 5th. So, but in this particular instance, the way I like to voice this chord, particularly if the A minor is, I'm using that shape, I'm just using that shape. Because I've got F, I've got A, which is the 3rd of A, I've got C, which is the 5th, I've got E, which is the major 7th, and G is the major 9th.
So you don't always think about putting the 9 on top?
No, not at all.
That's, I went to that.
I mean, you could do that.
And then having the A in the bass
Yeah.
there. But then the 9th was on the A string. It just didn't sound...
It's interesting, isn't it? How sometimes, depending on how you voice a chord, then the outcome will be very different. So the ingredients are the same, but I guess it's like, do you put milk before or after the tea bag? Is it kind of
Always
a
after.
situation?
Always after.
Yes.
There's a right and a wrong
But
way to do that.
I mean, the ingredients are the same, but the order, and I guess the way in which we do things is very important. So it's not only what we do, but how we do it. So that voice, I like it because it's pretty easy to play, and there's another lovely way of playing that chord, which is, if you think about, that's an F major 7, was C shape. If we dispense with the third, because we have it here as well anyway, we can add the 9th. It's a lovely way of playing F major 9, and then over A, it's very easy. It's quite nice as well, isn't it?
So it's like A minor with a sharp 5.
Yes, you can see this as an A minor 7 with a sharp 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing, some people actually describe that as an A minor 7 with sharp 5. The only problem that I have with that, and that I know where it's borderline theory, but still relevant for reading, because if we understand what a chord consists of, then we can read it. If not, we can't read it because we don't understand it. So the A minor sharp 5, normally what you need in theory, if you have a sharp 5, you can't have a perfect fifth. But we do. So what you could, but then the way around it will be to call that flat 13. You can call the A minor 7 flat 13. 13 rather than flat 6 because there's a 7th. So normally, traditionally in theory, people love to use we call it compound interval. So the second becomes a 9, the 4th. But I think F major 9 is good because it's unequivocal. Although it's a very long name and it's a slash chord, and it's a bit of a pain reading the slash chord. But then again, you get used to it. So I'll play the chord and you play the melody now. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Top. That's it. So that's great, and I think it's really good to do. It's very important to do this. Read in context. Let's move on to the next exercise. So really well done, everybody. That's great. So the next exercise features an A harmonic minor with arpeggios and scales. And the quicker we can recognize the arpeggios, the better for us, of course, because we can position our fingers accordingly. Apologies for the E sharp diminished 7 instead of the F diminished 7. What happened is that I did all the exercises in C, and then I've transposed them, and Sibelius transposed them literally in that tonality without changing. I did change a few harmonic spelling, but not that one, which is good for practicing again, good practice. Anyway, let's look at the arpeggio. First arpeggio. So instead of starting from A, we start from the third. You want me to look at it? This is playable in open position for the most part until which bar?
Sit. Did it sit?
Yeah, brilliant, yeah.
Good. 14.
14, yeah, you're right, Rob, that's it. There we have to kind of move to.
So that's what I was finding doing the practice from last week, was that it's the same kind of thing, was that I was trying to start doing it in one position, trying to just really hone in on that position, but then a lot of it came out of that position. So then what I ended up finding was that like a lot of the stuff we did in sort of like the caged A shape,
Yes.
was that if I just moved that around to where the key centre was, that it was all under my fingers, but then I didn't look at the notes, and that was, I'd stop and be like, well, I don't I know that should be an E, but that's not an E.
I know, that's it, exactly. But this is very positive, Rob, because
Yeah.
it's like a problem-solving exercise, isn't it? Because as soon as I often think about as an analogy, forgive me if I've used this already, but I think it makes a lot of sense. Is when you are driving and you know your road, you know how to go from A to B, from here to to London, right? But then there's traffic, and you have to take a detour, and if you don't know, you're gonna get stuck. So, but then the first time you do that, and the second time around, you learn another route to go to London, and then you learn another one, and then you learn. So that's what a sat nav does. And if you have to, there's an accident, and immediately we recalculate a new route for you. If we can do that with our position, so I'm stuck with that position, I have to change route. Can I do it? Yes, fine. I can recalculate it. I can see the pathways. I can see, it's like you can see a map of your A harmonic minor. If you're dealing with an A harmonic minor like we are now, it's easier because you know the boundaries. You know what you're dealing with already. Sometimes if you're reading an unknown piece, you don't know whether you're going to be dealing with an A harmonic minor, with an A major, with a chromatic piece. So we have to use a variety of different strategies. But no, that's a really positive observation. Great point. Yeah. Okay. So another thing that could really help you, or definitely help me, is adding chords. Like here, example number 2. I know that a melody over an A minor would definitely have a C rather than a C sharp, an E rather than E flat. Do you see what I mean? And over an E7, it's very likely that I might find a G sharp, or I might find a B or an E, notes which make that chord. So having chord symbols sometimes really can help us understanding what context and the shape as well, which is, I think musicians should really help. Anyway, let's look at the first bar. Let's play the first bar. 3, 4. And again 3, 4. Brilliant. And again, so second, we do the same thing, and then we move to the second bar. 3, 4. Brilliant. And rest. And then after that, we've got this stepwise movement. So we go from the 5th E and descend down to a D, and then the B, A, and F. And then all these notes, B, A, and F, they are quite obvious because if you look at the chord, F major 7 sharp 11, you would expect B. A is the third, F is the third. So again, whenever we are reading a melody which comes with a harmony, we could glance quickly at the chords, and that can really help us understanding. Just like what we were saying, what Rob was saying about positioning. I know that I'm dealing with that chord, so it's likely for me to, you know more or less what you're going to be getting in that bar. And then the next chord, it's an E sharp diminished, so it's an F diminished 7. So actually, I'm sorry, it's an E sharp diminished triad, so F diminished triad over A. So that chord, it's just a passing chord which resolves to an F major 7. I just wanted to share some not so obvious harmonic structures with you as well. So let's try the melody very slowly from the top, from bar 9 to bar 12. 3, 4, brilliant. Same thing. You play the melody, I'll play the chords. 3, 4, brilliant, excellent. Second bar, or second line rather, bar 13. We have a similar rhythmic shape as before, but different notes. So take a minute to look at it, to study that. what is going to be quite intuitive to do after the crochet triplets is to carry on playing with a similar subdivision, but the quaver triplets, they are twice as fast, of course, or short. So it'll be da 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 da. So when I'm doing a gig, I kind of anticipate what the hurdles could be before I get there, whenever I can. Sometimes there's not enough time to do that, and it's really stressful. When you do the music and it's okay, and they come to you straight away, there's not enough time to assess. But more often than not, you do have even like 1 minute to look at start, finish, chord, sign. And I always use the formula, if in doubt, leave it out. If there's a section you're not entirely sure and you've been roasted there, that it's okay, it's absolutely fine to just leave one bar out. No one's going to, more often than not, people will not notice that. People will notice when you're doing just a duo gig, and then it's you playing even just the chords, and a singer singing the melody, and then so playing chords somehow is vital for us to be able to play any chord in real time. And again, but there is a trick there that you could. I think it is true to say that if in doubt, as long as you play the lowest note, the root. So let's say that was playing the harmony for this exercise number 2 in real time, and I've never seen that. If I don't play the chords in their entirety, it's not the end of the word if I play the bass. If I do, instead of playing, I just play. Even if you play the root of the second and the third chord, it doesn't matter too much. It sounds like it's a musical decision rather than a necessity. And that that's with experience you really start doing that. Yeah, so that's another really important part of sight reading, is basically deciding what is essential and what you could dispense with in real time, if you have to, of course. If you can play the chord in its entirety and you want to play, of course you want to play that. But and the same thing can be said for melodies like that. If you're doing a sight reading gig and the music is like really intense and there's a lot of passages which are really tricky. Very often music written by non-guitar players, so they might even write stuff which is really impossible to play anyway on the guitar. I don't know if you've ever been presented chord voicings which actually are not playable by non-guitar players. Like piano players write music for guitar. Very often they write voicings which are you have to kind of stretch like that, and it's like A minor 7. You would just do that instead, right? So that's another really hidden challenge within sight reading, is the ability to recognize what's not playable and to change that into something which is actually playable, which is idiomatic. Does that make some kind of sense? Yeah. Good. So let's try this from bar 13. 3, 4. That's it. So 3, 4. Again, 3, 4. Let's figure that. That's it. That's it. Again, 3, 4. Brilliant. Next part, pretty straightforward. So bar 15 and 16, so the last 2 bars of the exercise. 3, 4. So I reharmonize some of these lines just to make it a little bit more distracting. So when you're reading that, you'll think, oh, is that right? So let's try from bar 13 until the end. I'll play the chords, you play the melody. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, sorry. 3, 4. I don't know if you noticed that we're doing what we mentioned. Da, 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 da. that's the calypso. So it'll be down, 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 and it's harder when you play at the slow tempo. It's so hard. So that's why I think it's really good to subdivide each pulse into triplets. Triple, can, ready? 3, 4. Yeah. Excellent. Same place, 3, 4. Very good, excellent. Let's try this exercise number 2 in its entirety. One bar in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent, very good. Now, I would like to challenge you to use a different shape, a different position from the one you used just now. Even if you make a few mistakes, doesn't matter. Just a challenge. I know. But just even if you make a few mistakes, doesn't matter. It's just really to really, I guess, to really appreciate how much harder that is. Or you might discover that in certain parts might be easier. I don't know. So let's try this slower, and any shape of your choice, but different from what you just used. Nice and slowly. Let me give you 1 minute to really revise that actually. I'll play the chords, you play the melody. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. It's much harder, isn't it? It's really, but it's good to do that, in my opinion. I do this all the time, and it's really uncomfortable. But that's when you grow the most, because you're working on a part, on a route that you don't know. My analogy about the sat nav. So the first time you're going to be really uncomfortable, borderline annoying, and you just want to put the guitar away. But then if you persevere and just really take your time to say, okay, yeah, E is there, F is there, got the G sharp there, E. All of a sudden, that part becomes much more familiar. So with anything, to really make progress, we have to, we have to challenge ourselves a little bit more, but in a realistic fashion. So what you could do, you can do a combination of maybe play some parts, the hardest parts in a most familiar position, and then from time to time swap with a different one. I think we have time for a quick one, for another exercise with one with the melodic minor. Let's try exercise number 3. So it's this features arpeggios, scales, and passing notes. So notes which are not within a melodic minor, which is I think it's also a really good challenge because we can't rely too much on a position, on a shape. Can you just 1 minute to familiarize with that?
always catches me out having a sharp.
E sharp.
But having the first sharp in the bar and then it not being shown again is an accidental.
Yes. Because when you write, the interesting, I mean, one thing that is quite challenging for many, and for me as well when I started, is realizing that when you're dealing with melodic minor and harmonic minor, we use the key signature for the natural minor scale. So if you're in A melodic minor, you will still use the key signature for A natural minor, so no sharps or flats. So you always have to you need to add the accidentals in each bar. So for the sake of argument, if in bar number 2 you have a G without a sharp, that will be a G natural because we are in the key of A natural minor. And also the other thing is when you're changing octaves, something it's easy to forget. The accidental is only affected within an octave. So if you have G sharp here and then you go up an octave, you need to add it again.
Right.
You need to add it a natural.
But if it's not
sharp.
written, it's a G natural.
That's right. Otherwise, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's one thing that it's yeah, in every octave, basically accidentals last only within an octave, or they're effective within an octave or within a bar. Within a bar, we all know that, but it's within an octave. It's something that sometimes it's easy to forget. All right, so there are some familiar shapes. Rhythmically, I kept it pretty linear. Crotchets and quavers. These are just one dotted crotchet in bar 4 and bar 8, or bar 20 and bar 24, I should say, from the chart. And at the very end, just to celebrate, I think we are finishing with a double stop. Happy ending. Okay, let's try maybe the first bar. This is one bar at a time, and then we cement everything together. So, bar 17. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great, fantastic. So that, yeah, the second G in that bar is also a G sharp. We don't need to add the G sharp, but the G sharp will be a G sharp throughout that bar and that octave. Yeah, second bar, 3, 4. And again, 3, 4. So not a G, but F sharp. You're playing G sharp as with also C, D, E, E sharp, F sharp. That's right. And that E sharp, the below E sharp, like the Smurfs, doesn't exist. It does exist. It just appears from time to time as a passing note. This is it's a classic example of not really an enclosure, but we're landing on that F sharp. So da, da, da. Yeah, from the melodic minor, but just E sharp isn't. It's just a passing note. Good. Bar, the following bar. 3, 4. Great. So we've encountered that phrase before. In bar 7, in the very first bar of this exercise, which is numbered as bar 17, the first bar of exercise number 3, features. So that's a similar phrase there. And then the last bar of this line will be F sharp. We'll include F sharp, D. Yep. Let's try the first 4 bars of this exercise. 1, 2, 3, 4. Brilliant. Again, I'll play the chords, or a chord. A minor 6 in the background. 3, 4, Great, that's it. So I wanted to, instead of just write some dry, meaningless melodic shapes, I've tried to include some phrases that you might be able to utilize when soloing as well on an A-6. So kind of phrase that you can use for soloing over an A-6 chord in A minor. Think about summertime. Summertime. Or classic like O You Como Va by Santana. That kind of phrasing within the melodic minor. So we're also talking about melodic minor phrasing without realizing it, I guess. Okay, so bar 21, so the next bar in the exercise. It's got another little bit of melodic cliche, which I like very much. And if you recognize that and you learn about it, it's just like learning a word in its entirety. You're not reading each letter, you just recognize the word in its entirety. So that'll be it's a kind of very popular phrase. And trying this in different positions is great as well. Yeah, so that will be about 21 and 22 in the chart. So landing on that E, and then another bit of a cliche. And then just landing on that. To finish, if you're soloing over an A minor, that's a lovely phrase. And then descending melodic minor. Yeah. So trying different positions as well. Yeah, trying always to use a different position when you're practicing at home. When I do it in a gig, I'm going to go for the safest approach and just use my. But when I'm practicing, then I'll try to challenge myself in a position that I'm not entirely familiar with. We started a 5 minute later. We should do another. Just finish this exercise and then take a little break. So yeah. So let's try bar 21 and 22, please. 3, 4. Brilliant. Okay, the last two bars, it's a descending melodic minor for the most part. G sharp, F sharp, and then there's a skip there. Skip is like a larger, it's a volume article from the counterstand counterpoint together. So called Nothing Personal. That's Michael Brecker, the saxophonist, used to play all the time, the pattern thing on guitar. Called Nothing Personal, and he starts with that. That's the bass line. There's a classic melodic minor color, really. So F sharp, G sharp, and then A, and then C, and then the final double stop features, and the only double stop in this tune, which is E and G sharp. Yeah. And you play that in any position of your choice. Okay, so let's try it from bar 17 until the end. We'll just repeat out this exercise. Yeah? 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, so from bar 17, so from the beginning. From the top, yeah. 3, 4. Yeah, that's it. That's the exercise. Hard work, isn't it? So for next week, what I thought to do, I mean, there's another, you know, in this particular handout, and again, I'm sorry we have to read through the computer, but thank you for being so accommodating again. But you'll find there are some more exercises in this particular handout, and there are another 5. There are 5 copies of this, just like what we did, pretty much what we did last week, which are a clone of this, but in different tonalities. And that will stretch as in different registers. Some will be higher, you know, we'll have to read, you know, in their 10 position, 12 position. Some will really stretch as in the lowest possible register of the guitar. So if you find time to practice that, that'll be really, I'm sure will make the difference. And what people are suggesting is to do, eventually to extract some of these exercises for your final assessment and your final little test, which is great. It's a way to give us a deadline, and I guess it's great. I enjoy having a deadline. Well, I enjoy it because perhaps it's not really quite accurate, but it's good to do that. Educationally, it's good because then you know you're gonna do something, you're gonna move forward. Good. So the other thing within this handout, which I'd like to say that there will be some exercises with again. Natural minor scales, harmonic and melodic with different, sometimes arpeggios, some will include some passing notes as well, and a few feature some chord progression. For example, number 4 feature kind of classic chord progression that you're familiar with. Yeah. So that's the same melody up in octave, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed, you know, even just the chord progression. There are a few quirky little harmonic minor, melody minor chords there as well, which I hope will challenge you as well in a different way. But yeah, so keep in touch during the week, and what we'll do is a short break now. Keep in touch for the side reading. We'll take a short break, and then we'll do the ear training part. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Pina colada for everybody.
What was that last thing that you played, Giorgio?
That's exercise number 4. The next one. One we haven't managed to cover. That features a lot of cliches. It's the same chord progression of similar to Fly Me to the Moon, and I don't know how to spell this. It's called. Of course. You get chart. You're right.
Yeah, good, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, enjoying it. I'm getting, like today though, because I'm struggling, everything's just gone back to open position.
But you know, I think that's what.
And I can get through it in open position.
Well, that's absolutely fine. I mean, because in a given situation, you want to make sure you get through what you need